Ladies and gentlemen, a point where the desire to be seen, liked, or approved of transforms into something deeper, the quiet knowing of your own worth. Today, we step into that understanding. We explore the moment when calm self-belief replaces doubt and deliberate action takes the place of seeking approval. This is not about ego or approval. It's about alignment, authenticity, and the power that rises from within when you no longer need the world's permission to be yourself. True prosperity begins when one recognizes their own inner value. It is the moment when you stop chasing approval and start realizing that everything you've been seeking has always been within you. Most people spend years believing that prosperity is something to be earned through external success, through status, wealth, or approval. But the truth is, prosperity is not something you find outside of yourself. It is a reflection of how deeply you understand and honor your own worth. When you begin to see your value not as something that depends on achievements or others' opinions, but as an inherent truth, your entire reality begins to shift. You stop moving from lack, and you start moving from wholeness. The recognition of inner value does not come from arrogance or ego. It comes from awareness. It is a gentle but powerful awakening, a moment when you finally understand that self-respect, self-love, and self-belief are not luxuries, but necessities. You begin to see that every limitation you faced was tied to the way you viewed yourself. The world mirrors the energy you hold within. If you believe you are lacking, life continues to show you situations that confirm that belief. But when you begin to operate from a state of worthiness, everything begins to align with that inner conviction. True prosperity starts with gratitude, not for what you have, but for who you are. When you recognize your own value, you no longer need to compete, compare, or prove. You begin to understand that every person's path is different, and your role is not to imitate, but to evolve. The power of recognizing inner value lies in the peace it brings. You stop rushing. You stop forcing outcomes. You start trusting your timing, knowing that what is meant for you will find you when you are ready to receive it. When one values themselves deeply, even silence becomes productive. Every action carries intention. Every choice reflects clarity. You stop tolerating what drains you, and you start investing in what grows you. This shift is what prosperity truly feels like, not in material gain, but in mental and emotional freedom. You become selective with your energy because you finally understand its worth. The more you honor yourself, the more life honors you. Opportunities begin to flow, not because you are chasing them, but because your energy now attracts what resonates with your sense of worth. Recognizing inner value also changes how you handle loss and rejection. What once broke your self-belief now strengthens your perspective. You no longer see endings as failures, you see them as redirections. You begin to trust that everything leaving your life is simply creating space for something better aligned. That trust is prosperity. It is the quiet self-belief that no matter what happens externally, you remain whole internally. This form of prosperity cannot be taken from you because it does not depend on circumstances. It grows from awareness, and awareness cannot be lost once it is found. The more you live from your inner value, the more you realize that the universe responds not to your words, but to your vibration. People treat you the way you treat yourself. Life rewards you with experiences that reflect your self-image. The path to prosperity is, therefore, not about gaining more, but about remembering who you are beneath the layers of fear, doubt, and conditioning. The moment you stop seeking permission to be worthy is the moment you begin to live abundantly. You no longer wait for others to see your light. You become your own approval. You begin to make decisions from a place of self-belief instead of insecurity. You stop accepting less because you finally understand that settling for less is a form of self-denial. Every boundary you set, every standard you uphold, becomes an act of prosperity, a declaration that you are aware of your own value. When you recognize your inner value, your relationship with life transforms. You attract people who respect you, experiences that challenge and grow you, and opportunities that match your vibration. You stop surviving and start creating. You begin to live intentionally, realizing that your energy is your greatest asset. Abundance ceases to be a distant dream. It becomes a natural state of being. True prosperity is the peace of knowing that you are already enough. It is the power of standing firm in your truth, even when the world tries to convince you otherwise. It is the quiet self-belief that does not need to be seen, the calm strength that does not need to be loud. Once you recognize your own inner value, you begin to see value everywhere, in people, in moments, in yourself. That awareness turns even the simplest experiences into symbols of prosperity, proving that the richest life is the one lived with full recognition of one's own worth. The million stage represents an inner change, not material wealth. It is not defined by the number in your account, the title beside your name, or the possessions that surround you. It is a quiet, powerful shift that begins within a realization that the true form of prosperity has always existed in the way you think, act, and perceive yourself. Many people chase wealth believing it will bring fulfillment, yet they discover that no amount of accumulation can satisfy a restless mind or a disconnected soul. The million stage begins when you understand that richness is not something to be acquired, it is something to be remembered. It is the rediscovery of your own strength, your discipline, your clarity, and your capacity to create value through presence, rather than performance. When you enter this stage, your definition of success begins to evolve. You stop equating self-worth with productivity. You stop attaching happiness to outcomes. You begin to recognize that the outer world only reflects what you believe you deserve internally. The material may still come, and it often does, but it is no longer the reason you move. You move because your energy has become aligned with purpose. You move because growth itself has become the reward. The change is not about gaining more. It is about becoming more conscious, more deliberate, more aware of your power to shape the unseen forces that create your reality. In this stage, you start to release the need for approval. You realize that comparison is a thief of focus. You begin to understand that every individual's path unfolds in its own rhythm, and forcing outcomes only delays them. The million stage teaches calm perseverance, not passivity. It is the art of trusting timing while continuing to prepare yourself in silence. The person you become during that preparation is far more valuable than the prize you once chased. You begin to see that the true riches of life, peace, clarity, and freedom are the result of mastering your inner world, not conquering the outer one. The change also demands honesty. It invites you to confront your own limitations, not as weaknesses, but as messages. The moments that once broke you become lessons that refine you. Every failure becomes a mirror, showing you where your beliefs have been too small for the life you are meant to live. You learn that prosperity flows where inner awareness grows. When you begin to think differently, you attract differently. Your energy becomes the currency through which your reality is paid. The million stage does not require you to announce your change. It unfolds quietly. You begin to speak less about your goals and work more towards them. You lose interest in proving yourself and grow more invested in improving yourself. There is a calmness that replaces urgency, a certainty that replaces fear. You no longer chase opportunity, you create it through discipline and alignment. This change is not about speed, it is about depth. The deeper your awareness grows, the more naturally the external rewards begin to appear. You start to notice how your surroundings shift. The people who once drained you fall away, and those who match your new vibration begin to appear. Life reorganizes itself around your new state of being. The changes are subtle at first, a new idea, a fresh opportunity, a peaceful morning, but they carry immense meaning. Each shift confirms that you have stepped into a new level of consciousness, one that attracts what you once had to pursue. What makes this stage sacred is its independence from circumstances. You could have less materially yet feel richer than ever before. You could be alone yet more connected to yourself than you've ever been. You could be working quietly, unseen by the world, yet moving with more purpose and power than ever. The change is invisible to others but undeniable to you. You begin to carry yourself differently, not out of arrogance, but from the calm recognition that you are enough, and that enough is the foundation upon which true prosperity is built. The million stage is the maturity of your mind. It is the shift from seeking to becoming, from wanting to embodying. You stop asking for opportunities and start aligning with them through preparation. You stop hoping for luck and start cultivating discipline. It is an awakening, the realization that the external world cannot give you what you have not first found within. The change is not measured by wealth, but by wisdom. It is not about counting possessions, but about mastering perceptions. When this stage begins, it redefines everything. You learn to protect your peace as if it were gold, to treat your attention as the most valuable currency you possess. You realize that the true million is not made of paper or metal, it is made of awareness, focus, and emotional balance. Once you master those, the material world naturally follows. The million stage is a path from illusion to clarity, from scarcity to sufficiency, and from dependency to self-trust. It is the quiet evolution of your inner world that eventually transforms everything around you. Growth starts by facing and understanding personal fears, habits, and patterns. It begins the moment you stop running from what makes you uncomfortable and start asking yourself why it has power over you. Every fear you avoid becomes a wall between you and your potential. Every habit you ignore becomes a chain that quietly dictates your choices. Every pattern you repeat without awareness keeps you circling the same lessons. True change begins not by seeking something new, but by looking deeply into the parts of yourself you've been avoiding. The act of facing your inner world is not an easy one, but it is the only path to genuine growth. Fear has a way of disguising itself as logic. It tells you to stay safe, to avoid risks, to protect your comfort. But in truth, fear is rarely about danger, it's about the possibility of change. Growth threatens fear because it requires you to leave behind what is familiar. When you look closely at your fears, you begin to realize they are often rooted in old experiences, times when you were hurt, misunderstood, or rejected. These memories build invisible barriers, convincing you that staying small is safer than being seen. Yet every step toward inner awareness weakens those barriers. By facing fear with curiosity instead of resistance, you take away its authority. Habits, too, are reflections of your past conditioning. They are the subconscious responses you develop to cope, survive, or stay in control. Some habits protect you, but others limit you. They create cycles of repetition, patterns that replay the same emotions and outcomes. You may find yourself reacting the same way in relationships, procrastinating on goals, or seeking distractions to avoid silence. These patterns are not random, they are the language of your subconscious mind. The moment you become aware of them, you begin to regain your power. Awareness transforms automatic behavior into conscious choice. Understanding your patterns requires calm perseverance and honesty. You must observe yourself without judgment. It's not about labeling behaviors as good or bad, but about understanding their origin. Ask yourself what need each pattern once served. Maybe control gave you a sense of safety when things felt uncertain. Maybe perfectionism helped you earn approval when you feared rejection. Once you understand the purpose behind these behaviors, you can replace them with healthier alternatives that serve your growth instead of your fear. Awareness doesn't erase patterns overnight, but it gives you the clarity to choose differently each time they appear. Facing yourself can be uncomfortable because it reveals contradictions. You may realize that you've been sabotaging your own progress, or that your comfort zone has become your cage. But discomfort is not your enemy, it is the signal of change. The more you resist it, the longer you stay stuck. The moment you allow yourself to feel what you've been avoiding, the fear, the anger, the sadness, you release its hold over you. What you resist persists. What you confront transforms. Growth is the process of turning pain into awareness and awareness into wisdom. As you understand your fears and patterns, you begin to see how much of your life has been guided by unconscious repetition. You may have been reliving the same story in different forms, attracting similar situations, repeating familiar mistakes, meeting the same types of people. These repetitions are not coincidences, they are reflections of what still needs healing. When you finally see the pattern, you gain the power to end it. You stop blaming circumstances and start taking responsibility for your inner state. Responsibility is freedom because it gives you control over how you respond to life. Growth is not a single break. Through it is a gradual unfolding. Each time you face a fear, you reclaim a piece of your strength. Each time you recognize a pattern, you interrupt a cycle. Each time you choose awareness over avoidance, you grow lighter, stronger, and more centered. The process is not glamorous. It happens quietly, often in solitude, often in moments of reflection when the world isn't watching. It's in those moments that you begin to rebuild your relationship with yourself, one based on honesty, acceptance, and courage. Understanding yourself deeply changes how you interact with the world. You begin to respond instead of react. You start recognizing that other people's behavior often mirrors your own inner dynamics. You no longer see challenges as punishment, but as teachers. Life stops feeling like something happening to you and begins to feel like something happening for you. Every fear faced, every habit reshaped, every pattern broken, all of it becomes evidence of your evolution. In the end, growth is the art of awareness. It is the continuous practice of looking inward, understanding the stories you've carried, and rewriting them with intention. The path is not about becoming someone new, but about shedding everything that is not truly you. And that process begins always by facing and understanding your own fears, habits, and patterns, for they are not obstacles to your growth, but gateways to it. Transformation requires the release of people, habits, and energies that no longer align. Growth is not just about gaining new things. It is about letting go of what silently keeps you anchored to your old self. Every stage of your evolution demands a different version of you, and that version cannot rise while still holding on to everything that belongs to the past. The process of releasing is not always gentle. It often feels like loss, even when it is liberation. You begin to understand that not everyone can walk with you into your next chapter, and not every behavior or attachment can survive the expansion of your awareness. Transformation is a shedding, a quiet, powerful act of clearing space for what truly matches your new frequency. There comes a moment when you start noticing subtle discomforts. The conversations that once excited you begin to feel empty. The habits that once distracted you begin to drain you. The company that once felt comfortable begins to feel heavy. This is not a sign of arrogance. It is a sign of alignment. Your spirit recognizes that you are evolving, and the energies that once matched your old patterns no longer fit the rhythm of who you are becoming. The friction you feel is the tension between growth and familiarity. One wants to move forward, the other wants to stay the same. Choosing change means choosing discomfort in the short term for expansion in the long term. Letting go of people can be the hardest part of this process. It's difficult to accept that someone who once felt like home may now feel like history. Yet change demands honesty and acknowledgement that some relationships are built on versions of you that no longer exist. You may still care, still wish them well, but the emotional connection begins to fade because the purpose of that bond has been fulfilled. Growth often requires solitude, not as punishment, but as preparation. In silence, you learn to listen to your own intuition instead of the noise of attachment. You begin to see that holding on to what no longer nourishes you is a form of self-sabotage disguised as loyalty. Habits, too, must be released. The small, repetitive choices that once kept you comfortable often become the biggest obstacles to your evolution. You start to notice how certain behaviors keep you in cycles of stagnation, procrastination, overthinking, people-pleasing, or constantly seeking distractions to avoid your truth. These habits are not your enemies. They are outdated forms of protection. They once served you, but now they limit you. The moment you see them clearly, you reclaim the power to replace them with actions that reflect your new level of awareness. Growth happens in the space between the impulse and the decision, the moment you choose consciousness over comfort. Energy also changes during change. You begin to feel sensitive to environments that no longer resonate. The chaos that once felt normal starts to feel intolerable. You crave calm instead of stimulation, depth instead of drama. You start guarding your time more carefully because you understand that your energy is your currency. Anything that drains you without purpose becomes too expensive to keep. The more you release, the lighter you feel. It is not because you are losing, it is because you are returning to balance. Releasing misaligned energy is like clearing static from a signal. Once it's gone, clarity returns. The act of release is often misunderstood as rejection, but in truth, it is reverence. It is a deep respect for your evolution. You are not discarding what was. You are simply recognizing that its purpose has been completed. Holding on to the old while yearning for the new is a contradiction that keeps many people stuck. You cannot pour your future into containers built for your past. Each release opens space for something higher, something that reflects the person you are becoming instead of the one you are trying to outgrow. This process requires emotional maturity because letting go will trigger memories, attachments, and even guilt. But guilt is often just the residue of old conditioning, the belief that you must stay small to be accepted. Transformation teaches you that love and distance can coexist. You can release with gratitude. You can honor the role someone or something played in your path without needing to carry it forward. The strength lies not in clinging, but in trusting that what is meant for your next stage will meet you there. As you continue to evolve, you start to see how letting go is not loss, but alignment. Each release refines your energy, your environment, and your vision. You begin to move through life with greater awareness of what deserves your attention. The things that once controlled you no longer have the same hold. You act not from fear, but from clarity. The change becomes visible not because you've added more, but because you've stripped away everything false. What remains is pure, focused, and aligned. Releasing people, habits, and energies that no longer align is one of the most powerful acts of self-respect. It is a declaration that your growth is not negotiable. It is the acknowledgement that expansion requires emptiness before fulfillment. Every ending becomes a new beginning disguised as closure. The more you trust the process of release, the more effortlessly you flow into your next stage. Transformation is not about becoming someone else. It is about creating space for who you truly are to finally breathe. Silence becomes a source of strength and clarity during personal evolution. In a world that glorifies noise, where everyone is speaking, posting, and performing, silence becomes a rare and sacred act. It is not simply the absence of sound, it is the presence of awareness. When you enter silence, you begin to hear what the world has trained you to ignore: your own thoughts, your intuition, your unfiltered truth. Personal evolution requires that kind of listening, because growth doesn't come from constant movement or distraction. It comes from stillness, from the moments when you are brave enough to be alone with yourself. Silence strips away illusions. It removes the masks that noise allows you to wear. In conversation, in competition, in chaos, it's easy to play roles, to be who you think you should be, to say what is expected, to perform rather than express. But when everything quiets, the truth begins to surface. You can no longer hide behind words or activity. You begin to meet yourself, the real you, beyond the layers of identity and expectation. That meeting is uncomfortable at first. Silence feels heavy because it reveals everything you've been running from. But if you stay with it long enough, discomfort turns into clarity. You begin to understand your emotions, your patterns, your motives. You start seeing not just what you do, but why you do it. Strength is born from that awareness. When you learn to sit with your own silence, you stop seeking approval through noise. You no longer need to explain, prove, or defend yourself constantly. You begin to realize that most reactions come from insecurity, and that silence is often the higher form of wisdom. It gives you the ability to pause before responding, to observe before judging, and to act from intention rather than impulse. Silence strengthens the mind the way stillness strengthens the body. It gives you control over your energy, teaching you when to speak and when to conserve your power. In moments of silence, intuition becomes louder. The guidance that was once buried beneath anxiety begins to rise. You start to sense the difference between what feels right and what merely looks right. Silence helps you see patterns that were once invisible in your relationships, your choices, and your thoughts. You begin to recognize where you give too much, where you resist change, where your fear disguises itself as logic. These realizations cannot be found in noise. They are whispered in the quiet space between distractions. The deeper you go into silence, the clearer your path becomes. Silence is also a mirror for the soul. It reflects back everything that noise distorts. When you are constantly surrounded by sound, it's easy to believe that confusion is normal, that chaos is necessary. But silence teaches you that peace is not something you find outside, it's something you cultivate inside. It reminds you that clarity does not come from asking everyone else for answers, but from listening to the quiet intelligence within. This understanding is what transforms silence from emptiness into power. You begin to value your inner voice more than the world's opinions. You start trusting your instincts, even when others disagree. That trust becomes your compass. During personal evolution, silence acts as a filter. It separates what is essential from what is irrelevant. In silence, you begin to see which thoughts serve your growth and which drain your energy. You start to identify which people bring peace and which disturb it. Silence reveals truth without confrontation. It exposes authenticity without words. It allows you to detach from the noise of comparison and reconnect with your original rhythm, the one that existed before the world told you who to be. There is also a unique kind of power in choosing silence when the world expects reaction. It shows control. It shows depth. It shows that your peace is not for sale. Silence becomes the language of strength when you learn that not everything deserves your energy. Every time you choose stillness over chaos, reflection over reaction, you reinforce your inner stability. This stability becomes the foundation for growth because evolution requires calm perseverance, and calm perseverance grows only in quiet minds. Silence does not mean withdrawal from life. It means engagement with awareness. You still act, still speak, still live, but now your actions carry intention and your words carry weight. You are no longer moved by every emotion or opinion around you. Silence gives you perspective. It slows your thoughts enough to see what truly matters, and in that clarity, decisions become easier, boundaries become stronger, and your focus becomes sharper. As you continue to evolve, silence turns from solitude into sanctuary. You begin to crave it, not to escape the world, but to recharge your connection with yourself. It becomes the space where your creativity blooms, your thoughts settle, and your emotions align. The more you practice it, the more you realize that silence is not a weakness. It's a sign of mastery. It is the mark of someone who no longer needs external noise to feel alive, someone who has found power in stillness, direction in introspection, and strength in their own quiet truth. The path inward replaces the constant search for external approval. It begins when you grow tired of performing for approval and start longing for authenticity. For much of life, people are taught to measure their worth by the responses of others, by how many people applaud, notice, or agree. Yet this endless chase leaves the spirit restless. External approval is a fragile foundation because it depends on forces beyond your control. The moment the praise stops, doubt creeps in. The moment someone disapproves, your self-belief begins to crumble. True peace cannot exist in a life built upon the shifting opinions of others. That is why the path inward becomes necessary. It is the act of returning home to yourself after years of living for the world. The inward path begins quietly. It doesn't announce itself with fanfare or applause. It starts with an honest realization that no amount of approval can fill the emptiness created by self-neglect. You begin to notice how much of your energy has been spent trying to be seen, trying to be enough in the eyes of others. You recognize that the approval you've been seeking is a reflection of the acceptance you've been denying yourself. Every compliment once felt like oxygen because it temporarily silenced the inner voice of insecurity. But soon you discover that real Self-belief does not come from being admired, it comes from being aligned. Turning inward requires courage because it means facing everything that has been buried beneath the noise. It means listening to your own thoughts without distraction, feeling emotions you've long suppressed, and questioning the stories you've accepted about who you are. This process is uncomfortable because the ego resists silence. It thrives on reaction, on doing, achieving, and impressing. But growth demands stillness. The inward path teaches you to find approval not through attention, but through awareness. You begin to ask deeper questions. Who am I when no one is watching? What do I believe in when no one is there to agree? What do I value when there is nothing left to prove? As you path inward, the desire for approval begins to fade. You start to see that other people's opinions are filtered through their own experiences, fears, and limitations. What they think of you says more about them than it does about your worth. You realize that the approval you once chased was never truly about love, it was about reassurance. But reassurance cannot create self-belief. It only temporarily masks insecurity. True self-belief comes from self-understanding, from knowing who you are even when no one validates it. The inward path teaches detachment not from people, but from dependency. You no longer need the world to confirm what you already know about yourself. You become grounded in your own truth. Your actions begin to stem from authenticity rather than expectation. You stop over-explaining, overcompensating, and over-promising. You no longer shape yourself to fit into spaces that require you to shrink. This detachment does not make you cold, it makes you free. You start living from integrity instead of approval, and your peace becomes the highest form of success. The more you turn inward, the more you realize that external approval was never the problem, dependency on it was. Praise is not harmful until you need it to feel whole. When you no longer depend on it, it becomes something you can appreciate without losing yourself to it. You begin to operate from inner awareness, not ego. You still welcome appreciation, but it no longer defines you. Whether others notice your growth or not, you remain steady because your approval now comes from within. This inner grounding changes the way you experience life. You stop chasing recognition and start creating meaning. You stop seeking attention and start cultivating depth. You realize that your value is not a performance, it is a presence. You become more comfortable in solitude, more patient in uncertainty, and more peaceful in silence. This is because the inward path reconnects you with your own essence, the part of you that existed before the world told you who you should be. As you explore deeper layers of yourself, you uncover a sense of contentment that external approval could never offer. You learn to trust your intuition over popularity, your truth over acceptance, your peace over applause. You begin to understand that approval rooted in others will always be temporary, but approval rooted in inner awareness becomes unshakable. The path inward strips away illusions and exposes what is real: your values, your vision, your authentic self. And once you meet yourself at that depth, the constant search for approval naturally dissolves. What replaces it is stillness, a quiet assurance that you are already enough, without the confirmation of anyone else. You begin to live for alignment rather than admiration, for growth rather than recognition, and in that space you find something far greater than approval. You find freedom, the freedom to be, to express, to evolve not for applause, but for truth. That is the power of the inward path. It doesn't change who you are. It helps you finally see who you've always been beneath the noise of seeking approval. Protecting your energy and boundaries attracts greater opportunities. Every person carries an inner frequency, a personal vibration shaped by thoughts, emotions, and habits. This energy determines what kind of people and circumstances you attract. When you allow your energy to be drained by negativity, distractions, or people who don't align with your values, you unknowingly lower that frequency. Your potential becomes diluted. Protecting your energy is not an act of selfishness. It is an act of self-respect. It is the conscious choice to guard the space where your clarity, focus, and creativity are born. When you begin to honor your boundaries, you send a message to the world about how you deserve to be treated. Boundaries are invisible lines that define your emotional, mental, and physical space. They protect your peace from being invaded by chaos and manipulation. Many struggle with setting them because they fear being misunderstood or losing connection with others. But the truth is, without boundaries, you lose connection with yourself. You start absorbing everyone's emotions, carrying everyone's burdens, and living according to expectations that have nothing to do with your purpose. Protecting your energy means learning to say no without guilt, stepping back without apology, and recognizing that not every battle deserves your attention. When your energy is protected, your mind becomes clearer. The noise fades, and your intuition grows stronger. You begin to notice how certain conversations leave you feeling heavy, while others inspire you. You realize that not all company is nourishing. Some people feed your growth, while others feed on your energy. Protecting your energy is about being aware of this distinction. It is about choosing environments that support your evolution, not those that drain your spirit. When you withdraw from negativity, life starts to open in unexpected ways. You begin to attract opportunities that match your higher vibration, people who respect your boundaries, work that fulfills your potential, and experiences that nurture your inner balance. Energy is magnetic. What you hold inside radiates outward and shapes what returns to you. When your boundaries are weak, your energy leaks through small cracks, through unnecessary arguments, emotional overreactions, or the constant need for approval. But when your boundaries are firm, your energy becomes focused. It no longer disperses in 100 directions. It moves toward what truly matters. That focus is what draws opportunities toward you. People are instinctively drawn to those who have self-respect, who move with purpose and clarity. Protecting your energy communicates self-belief without words. It shows that you value yourself enough not to entertain anything that diminishes your peace. As you learn to protect your energy, you also begin to understand the importance of solitude. Being alone no longer feels like loneliness, but like maintenance of your inner world. It becomes a time to recharge, realign, and remember your priorities. In that solitude, ideas form, vision expands. You begin to see how much of your life was once shaped by the expectations of others. Boundaries become your filter. They separate what is authentic from what is imposed. When you protect your energy, you start to live intentionally rather than reactively. You are no longer available for chaos, gossip, or drama because you realize how costly they are to your peace. The more you honor your boundaries, the more the universe begins to respond in your favor. You start noticing synchronicities, meaningful connections, and chances that seem to appear effortlessly. This is not coincidence, it is alignment. When your internal energy is clean, it becomes a powerful magnet for everything that matches its frequency. Protecting your energy creates space, and in that space, new possibilities can emerge. The opportunities that once seemed far away begin to find their way toward you because your energy has become a match for them. Boundaries also strengthen your sense of identity. When you decide what deserves your energy, you define who you are. You become selective not out of arrogance but out of awareness. You realize that saying yes to everything is a silent form of self-abandonment. You begin to value your time as a sacred resource, something that should be spent, not wasted. Every no to what drains you becomes a yes to what expands you. This shift changes how you show up in the world. Your energy becomes intentional, your presence grounded, and your choices aligned. Protecting your energy also transforms how others interact with you. When people sense that your peace cannot be easily disturbed, they treat you differently. The ones who thrive on chaos naturally drift away, while those who respect your boundaries draw closer. This natural selection clears your path, leaving only what contributes to your growth. You stop chasing opportunities and begin attracting them. You stop explaining your worth and begin embodying it. Over time, protecting your energy becomes a way of life, an invisible shield that allows you to move through the world without losing yourself in it. It turns focus into magnetism, solitude into strength, and boundaries into bridges that lead to greater purpose. The more you guard your energy, the more opportunities align with your peace, because life always responds to the level of energy you maintain within. Loneliness during change is a creative solitude, not emptiness. It is a quiet stage where life seems to pause, and the people, habits, and distractions that once surrounded you begin to fade. At first, this silence feels unfamiliar, even painful. You start to notice the absence of noise, of company, of approval. Yet, beneath that stillness lies something extraordinary. What you interpret as loneliness is often the space required for renewal. Transformation demands emptiness only so that something deeper can take its place. It removes what no longer serves you, not to leave you hollow, but to prepare you for expansion. In this solitude, you meet yourself in ways you never could while surrounded by others. When life pulls you away from certain people or situations, it is not punishment, it is alignment. It is life creating room for your evolution. The loneliness that follows is not a void, it is a bridge between who you were and who you are becoming. In that gap, old versions of you begin to dissolve. Your priorities shift, your perceptions deepen, and your sense of identity starts to rebuild itself from within. It is during this time that your inner voice grows stronger. Without external noise, you begin to hear the quiet guidance that was always there, waiting for your attention. Creative solitude is where imagination awakens. When you are no longer constantly stimulated by others, your mind begins to explore new pathways. Ideas emerge from the silence like seeds breaking through the soil. You begin to feel things more deeply, colors seem richer, emotions more honest, thoughts more profound. This heightened sensitivity is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of awakening. Solitude gives you access to the depths of your mind that cannot be reached in the presence of distraction. It is in this state that many people rediscover passions they had forgotten or unlock creative expressions that were once buried under daily noise. The loneliness that accompanies change teaches you emotional independence. It reminds you that peace and approval cannot be borrowed, they must be cultivated. The people who once defined your sense of belonging may no longer understand your silence, and that is part of growth. True evolution often separates you from familiar circles because you are no longer operating at the same emotional or energetic level. This disconnection is not rejection, it is redirection. You are being guided toward spaces and relationships that reflect your new awareness. As solitude deepens, you start noticing the difference between being lonely and being alone. Loneliness comes from longing for connection outside of yourself, but solitude is the art of connecting inward. In solitude, you discover that your own company is enough. You begin to feel whole without needing constant affirmation. This is where strength is born, the kind of strength that comes from knowing that even in isolation, your life holds purpose. When you can sit in silence without feeling empty, you have reached a level of self-understanding that cannot be taken away by circumstance. Transformation requires isolation because clarity grows in quiet spaces. When you step away from the noise of the world, you can see your patterns with greater honesty. You begin to understand your fears, your habits, and the parts of yourself that need healing. The process is not comfortable. Some days feel heavy, some nights too long, but beneath that discomfort lies profound beauty. It is in this stage that your inner foundation strengthens, preparing you for the life that awaits on the other side of change. The solitude of change also reveals the truth about relationships. It teaches you that not everyone is meant to walk with you into your next chapter. Some connections belong to past versions of you, versions that you are now outgrowing. Letting go of those attachments feels like loss, but in reality, it is liberation. It is a necessary clearing that allows new energies to enter your life, relationships that align with who you are becoming, not who you were. This space of loneliness is where that shift happens quietly, without applause, without recognition. In creative solitude, you also begin to rebuild your relationship with time. The rush that once controlled you starts to dissolve. You move slower, think deeper, and act with greater intention. You begin to see that change is not about forcing change, but allowing it. Solitude gives you calm perseverance, and calm perseverance gives you wisdom. The more you embrace the silence, the more it reveals its gifts. You start realizing that what felt like emptiness is actually full of potential, a field where your next version is taking shape, unseen but inevitable. Loneliness during change is a sacred invitation to rediscover your essence. It teaches you to draw strength from within and to find peace in your own presence. The emptiness you once feared becomes your greatest teacher, a mirror reflecting everything that needed to be healed, released, or reborn. It is not a void, but a canvas, waiting for the new patterns of your becoming to emerge. True breakthroughs occur quietly before they become visible to others. Transformation rarely announces itself with noise or recognition. It unfolds in silence, in the unseen spaces of your daily life. It happens when you begin to think differently, respond differently, and choose differently even when no one notices. The world often celebrates results, but the real shift takes place long before the results appear. It begins in your thoughts, in the private moments when you question your patterns and challenge your own limits. These internal revolutions are quiet because they are personal. They don't need approval. They are not designed to impress. They are meant to prepare. The process of a breakthrough is subtle. It often starts with discomfort, a growing restlessness, an unease that something in your life no longer fits. You might not even have the words to explain it. This is the first sign of change, the silent realization that you can't continue being who you were. From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening, but inside, everything is shifting. Your thoughts begin to stretch, your awareness expands, and slowly, the old layers of identity start to dissolve. No one sees this. There are no witnesses to the internal battles, the late night reflections, or the quiet moments when you choose to rise above your impulses. Yet these moments are where the foundation of your next chapter is built. A true breakthrough is never dramatic at first. It does not shout for attention. It whispers through awareness. You start noticing your reactions to situations that used to control you. You pause instead of rushing. You observe instead of judging. That pause, that moment of self-control, is a silent victory, a sign that change is taking root. Most people overlook these moments because they are not glamorous. But these are the turning points that shape who you become. Each quiet decision you make in alignment with your higher self strengthens the energy of change. You begin to act less from fear and more from clarity. During this stage, it's common to feel unseen or misunderstood. You might be working on yourself, letting go of old habits, or breaking internal patterns. Yet the world around you continues as if nothing has changed. That's because true growth doesn't seek external approval. It's an inward path, and only those who have walked a similar path can recognize its depth. The silence of your evolution is sacred. It's where your new self gathers strength before revealing itself. This quiet period tests your calm perseverance and your faith in your own process. You learn to trust progress that cannot yet be measured. Breakthroughs also occur in the moments of surrender, when you finally stop resisting change and allow life to move you. These moments are invisible, but they are powerful. The instant you stop clinging to what no longer serves you, space is created for new experiences to enter. No one can see this inner release, yet it alters everything. Your energy shifts, your perception widens, and suddenly, the path ahead becomes clearer. The world only sees the outcome later, the success, the change, the achievement, but what they miss is the long silence that made it possible. Even in nature, breakthroughs are quiet. Seeds break open beneath the soil before they bloom into flowers. Caterpillars dissolve into stillness before becoming butterflies. In the same way, your personal growth happens beneath the surface. The silence is not inactivity. It is incubation. It's the gathering of strength, the refining of purpose, the realignment of energy. This is why it's important not to mistake quiet seasons for stagnation. They are the very essence of change. You may not have visible progress, but inside, something new is forming, something that requires stillness to mature. When the breakthrough finally becomes visible, it often looks effortless to others. They see the success, the self-belief, the new reality, but they don't see the solitude, the confusion, or the persistence that made it possible. They see the flower, not the soil that nurtured it. This is the nature of true change. By the time the world notices, you've already done the work. The applause comes after the struggle, but the real reward is internal peace, the quiet knowing that you've evolved. In the silence before visibility, you learn one of life's deepest truths. Growth does not need to be witnessed to be real. The changes that matter most happen within. You refine your mindset, strengthen your boundaries, and redirect your energy toward what aligns with your truth. These invisible choices shape your destiny. Every breakthrough begins in these unseen layers of inner awareness. By the time the world catches up, you've already stepped into your new self. True breakthroughs are silent because real power doesn't seek attention. It doesn't announce itself. It transforms everything from within. The quiet work you do today becomes tomorrow's visible success. It's in those unnoticed moments of discipline, calm perseverance, and courage that your greatest change is born long before anyone else sees it. Reality mirrors your inner identity. External success follows internal alignment. The world you experience is not separate from you. It reflects who you are on the inside. Every thought, belief, and emotion acts like a lens through which you perceive and create your life. When that inner lens is clouded by self, doubt, fear, or conflict, the outer world appears equally unclear and resistant. But when you align your inner world, when your thoughts, emotions, and actions move in harmony, life begins to flow with greater ease. Opportunities that once seemed out of reach begin to appear, not by coincidence, but because you've become a match for them. The process begins with awareness. Many people chase external success, wealth, recognition, relationships without realizing that these are reflections of their inner state. You cannot attract prosperity from a mindset of scarcity, nor can you create peace while living in internal chaos. The outer world bends to the energy you carry. If you feel undeserving, life will confirm it through missed chances or unfulfilling outcomes. But when you begin to see yourself as worthy and capable, your actions, words, and even your presence begin to shift. The alignment within starts to reorganize your external world. Your identity is the foundation of your reality. It's the silent story you tell yourself about who you are and what you deserve. If your inner narrative says you are not enough, you will unconsciously limit your choices and opportunities to match that belief. You might sabotage success or settle for less than you desire. But when your inner identity expands, when you begin to view yourself as powerful, creative, and deserving, your external reality adjusts accordingly. The people, experiences, and situations that no longer align with this new version of you naturally fade, while new possibilities arise. Life responds not to your wishes, but to your vibration, the emotional tone of your being. Internal alignment means your mind, emotions, and actions work together. It's the harmony between what you think, what you feel, and what you do. When these elements contradict each other, progress feels blocked. You might say you want success, but if you secretly fear failure or believe you don't deserve it, that inner conflict creates resistance. However, when you align your beliefs with your desires, when your mind believes it's possible, your emotions feel it's real, and your actions express that belief, life begins to cooperate with you. This is when synchronicities appear, when things start to fall into place effortlessly. Reality, in many ways, is a mirror that never lies. It reflects back your level of consciousness, showing you the patterns and beliefs you hold inside. If you consistently attract chaos, it may be revealing unhealed parts of yourself that crave attention. If you encounter rejection, it might mirror your own doubts about worthiness. This reflection isn't punishment, it's guidance. Life shows you what needs to be understood, accepted, or transformed within. When you change internally, the mirror naturally changes too. This is why inner work is the true foundation of external success. Meditation, reflection, journaling, and inner awareness are not luxuries. They are tools of creation. They help you observe your thoughts, detach from limiting beliefs, and reshape your internal world. When you start choosing thoughts that empower you instead of weaken you, your energy shifts. You begin to carry a presence that others can feel calm, focused, and intentional. The world responds to that energy with new connections, opportunities, and directions. Many people believe success is a matter of luck or timing, but the truth is deeper. Success is a reflection of internal clarity. You can only hold what you are ready to receive. If your inner identity is rooted in doubt or fear, success becomes unstable. It slips away because it doesn't match your self-image. But when you cultivate a strong sense of inner value, success feels natural. It stays because it resonates with who you've become. You no longer chase approval from the outside. Instead, you express authenticity from within. Alignment also brings peace. When your inner and outer worlds match, you stop living in contradiction. You no longer wear masks or live by others' expectations. Your choices flow from truth, and that truth creates stability. This balance is what draws meaningful success, not the kind that is loud or fleeting, but the kind that feels right, purposeful, and lasting. People sense when someone's energy is aligned. It creates trust, influence, and magnetism. The moment you align your inner identity with your highest vision, reality begins to shift in response. Obstacles that once seemed permanent begin to dissolve because you no longer perceive them through fear. Instead of fighting against life, you move with it. This flow is not luck, it is resonance. The universe mirrors your state of being, and when you become internally whole, your external world becomes a reflection of that wholeness. Reality does not create your identity creates reality. Everything begins within you. The success, love, and peace you seek are already forming the moment you align your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs with who you truly are. When that alignment becomes your way of being, the outer world has no choice but to mirror it back in the form of opportunity, harmony, and prosperity. Abundance is first a feeling before it becomes a physical reality. It begins as a quiet shift inside a state of gratitude, self-belief, and openness long before it ever shows up in the outer world. Many people chase prosperity as if it exists somewhere outside of them in money, possessions, or achievements, but true prosperity starts with perception. It is the inner knowing that you already possess enough, that you are capable, and that life is full of possibility. This mindset becomes the foundation for everything that follows. When you cultivate that feeling internally, your thoughts, actions, and energy begin to align with prosperity, and gradually, your external world rearranges itself to reflect it. The feeling of prosperity is rooted in gratitude. It is the ability to recognize the richness of what already exists in your life, your experiences, relationships, lessons, and opportunities. Gratitude shifts your focus from lack to fullness. When you focus on what you don't have, you send a signal of scarcity, reinforcing the belief that something is missing. But when you appreciate what you do have, you open yourself to receive more. This shift in awareness doesn't change the outer world instantly, but it transforms the energy through which you engage with it. You begin to act not from desperation, but from trust, and trust attracts more of what you believe you deserve. Abundance as a feeling is not tied to numbers or status. It is a vibration, a frequency of expansion. When you feel abundant, you carry yourself differently. Your decisions come from clarity rather than fear. You are more generous, more creative, and more open to collaboration. People sense that energy. It becomes magnetic. Opportunities flow toward you because prosperity recognizes itself in like energy. The world mirrors what you embody, not what you wish for. So when you truly feel abundant, even before the results appear, you begin to move in harmony with that reality. This feeling cannot be faked through affirmations alone. It has to be lived, breathed, and felt on a deep emotional level. You begin by shifting your relationship with life. Instead of viewing the world as something you must conquer, you start to see it as a partner, responsive and reciprocal. You realize that every thought of gratitude expands your field of possibilities, and every thought of scarcity contracts it. Abundance grows where appreciation lives. When you cultivate that inner warmth, life naturally responds with matching experiences because energy always seeks balance. Often, people misunderstand prosperity as mere accumulation. They equate having more with being more. But true prosperity is not about excess. It's about sufficiency, the sense that what you have and who you are is already enough. From that place, you create with ease instead of struggle. You no longer act out of fear of loss, but from joy in giving and receiving. The paradox of prosperity is that when you stop chasing it, it starts finding you. The more you release the belief that you are lacking, the more life reveals its generosity. This inner feeling also changes your relationship with time and effort. When you operate from scarcity, you rush, compete, and force outcomes. When you operate from prosperity, you move with calm perseverance, self-belief, and flow. You trust that what is meant for you will come in its right timing. This does not mean passivity, it means acting from calm certainty rather than anxious need. That emotional stability is what makes manifestation possible. The outer world follows the inner rhythm you create. The feeling of prosperity expands your vision. You start noticing possibilities where others see limitations. You become more creative because your mind is not weighed down by fear. You approach challenges as opportunities rather than obstacles. Every experience becomes a part of growth rather than a sign of lack. This shift in perspective changes the quality of your energy, and energy determines outcome. People who feel abundant don't wait for success to feel fulfilled. They feel fulfilled now, and success naturally follows. Even in moments when life seems uncertain, the feeling of prosperity sustains you. It reminds you that lack is temporary, that every ending carries a seed of renewal. It grounds you in the understanding that you are not separate from the flow of life's prosperity, you are a part of it. When you align with that truth, your outer circumstances begin to rearrange to match your inner belief. You start attracting ideas, people, and resources that resonate with your new energy. Abundance begins as an invisible shift, a quiet decision to see life through the lens of possibility instead of limitation. It grows with gratitude, calm perseverance, and trust. When you nurture that feeling daily through appreciation, self-belief, and positive focus, it becomes your natural state of being. And when prosperity becomes your state, the external world can only reflect it back. The wealth, peace, and opportunities that appear later are simply the physical evidence of what was already true within you all along. Success is redefined from accumulation to inner awareness and peace. For much of life, we are taught that success means collecting things, achievements, titles, possessions, recognition. The world praises motion, competition, and visible progress, so we begin to chase symbols instead of substance. Yet, the deeper you go into your own evolution, the more you begin to see that real success has nothing to do with accumulation and everything to do with alignment. It's not about how much you own, but how deeply you understand yourself. It's not about being admired, but about being at peace with who you are when no one is watching. The pursuit of external success often begins as a search for approval. You chase goals not because they fulfill you, but because you hope they will silence the feeling of not being enough. You climb ladders that lead to nowhere because every achievement, though satisfying for a moment, quickly fades into another form of desire. This cycle never ends until you pause and question what you are really chasing. That moment of questioning marks the beginning of true success because it shifts your focus inward. You start to realize that the destination you've been seeking in the outside world has always been within. Self-awareness is what transforms the meaning of success. It teaches you to observe your thoughts, your habits, and your emotional patterns without judgment. You begin to see that much of what you once wanted was shaped by comparison, fear, or conditioning. The more aware you become, the more freedom you gain, freedom to choose what truly matters to you rather than what the world tells you should matter. You start building a life that reflects your values instead of your insecurities. That's when success becomes personal, intimate, and authentic. Peace becomes the new measure of achievement. You find it not in noise but in clarity. Peace is not the absence of ambition, but the presence of understanding. It means you can pursue your goals without being enslaved by them. You can work hard, but from a place of fulfillment, not emptiness. When peace becomes your foundation, success takes on a softer tone. It's no longer about proving something. It's about expressing something, your truth, your creativity, your potential. This kind of success feels effortless because it flows from alignment rather than resistance. As you redefine success, you begin to notice how accumulation once distracted you. You collected things hoping they would give meaning to your life: money, status, admiration, yet each one felt incomplete. The truth is, no external reward can replace the peace that comes from self-acceptance. When you start knowing yourself, your triggers, strengths, fears, and desires, you no longer chase recognition to feel seen. You no longer compete to feel worthy. You begin to move with quiet self-belief because you understand that the only competition that ever mattered was between your past and present self. In this redefined form, success becomes less about outcome and more about state of being. It's about waking up with clarity, making choices that align with your integrity, and ending the day with inner calm. It's about handling life's challenges without losing your center. This kind of success cannot be taken away by circumstance because it doesn't depend on external conditions. It lives in your awareness, in your ability to remain balanced no matter what the world demands. The change from accumulation to awareness is not always easy. It requires unlearning the beliefs that once defined your worth. You may feel moments of emptiness as you detach from old measures of success. You might even face confusion when the world around you continues to praise the very illusions you've outgrown. But this discomfort is temporary. It's the space where your new understanding begins to take shape. Slowly, you learn to value experiences over possessions, presence over productivity, and peace over approval. When success is defined by awareness, it becomes sustainable. It doesn't burn you out, it nourishes you. You start making decisions not for applause, but for authenticity. You say no more often, not out of arrogance, but because your energy has become sacred. You prioritize rest, creativity, and stillness as much as progress and effort. You begin to measure growth by how calm you remain under pressure, how deeply you listen to yourself, and how peacefully you can let go of what no longer fits your path. This inner success changes everything around you. Relationships improve because they are built on understanding, not expectation. Work becomes meaningful because it reflects your truth. Even challenges start to serve a purpose, each one teaching you more about who you are and how resilient you can be. The outer world begins to mirror the harmony you've created within. Success redefined is quiet, grounded, and powerful. It no longer needs recognition because it carries its own. It's the peace that comes from inner awareness, the fulfillment that grows from authenticity, and the joy of knowing that everything you truly need already exists within you. In that understanding, you stop chasing life and begin to live it fully, freely, and consciously. The stage symbolizes readiness. Entering it requires self-mastery and calm perseverance. Every new stage of life is not given. It is earned through the quiet discipline of becoming. Readiness is not about circumstances aligning perfectly, but about the individual aligning internally with what they seek. Many people want the rewards of change without facing the inner restructuring it demands. But readiness is not about desire, it is about preparation. It comes when you've trained your mind to remain steady amid uncertainty, your emotions to remain balanced amid chaos, and your spirit to remain patient amid delay. Self-mastery begins when you stop being ruled by your impulses. The mind constantly demands quick results, approval, or comfort, but mastery teaches you restraint. It is the art of observing your emotions without being consumed by them, of pausing before reacting, and of understanding the difference between movement and progress. The person who has mastered themselves knows when to act and when to wait, when to speak and when to remain silent. This awareness creates a depth of control that cannot be taught by books or borrowed from others. It must be developed through experience, through the small daily moments where you choose discipline over distraction and consistency over comfort. Patience is the twin force that accompanies mastery.